Equivalent fractions with fraction models, denominators 10 and 100. Let's see what this looks like. Complete the equation to make an equivalent fraction. Oh, okay, cool. Okay, I get it. I get it. I see what's going on here. We have c over 100 equals 7 over 10. Now, as you can see over here on the bottom, we have a square, and it is a square, just like I was using in the previous video. And it looks like there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 shaded out of 8, 9, 10. We've got 7/10. So the question is, what would it look like if we had the same 7/10 up here in this top square that is cut into 100 pieces? And I'm going to go ahead and highlight that for the first time so that you can see it. But hopefully you can see that just like in my video on squares and common denominators, what's going on here is that it's taking these like strips of rectangles and it's cutting each one up and down into 10 pieces. And by doing so, it is taking the number of pieces and multiplying it by 10. And this is important because multiplication and division are very, very closely related. When you divide each piece into 10, you are actually multiplying the total number of pieces by 10. It's the same thing. By cutting it into tenths, you are ensuring there will be 10 times as many. Just like if I take a pizza that's cut into some number of pieces, if I take each piece and cut it in half, I have created twice the pieces. They are just each half as big. I really hope that makes sense. So in this case, we would end up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7/10, and each tenth is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 squares. Well, the total number of squares would be 7 times 10 equals 70. Out of 10 times 10 equals 100. It's just the same kind of common denominator finding that we've been doing. Okay? Okay. So 7 out of 10 is the same thing as 70 over 100, which, fun fact, is the same thing as 70%, which we will talk about later on. It turns out the word percent just literally means divided by 100. We'll get to more on that later on. So if I have 10 over 100, and again, it's kind enough to give me these two models here, I can tell that these 10 little squares here are equivalent to one of these little rectangles here. Yeah? 10 out of 100 is the same thing as 1 over 10. Essentially, what I'm doing is I'm reducing the fraction by dividing the top and the bottom by 10. 100 divided by 10 is 10. 10 divided by 10 is 1. You can multiply or divide the top and bottom of any fraction so long as it's the same on the top and bottom, you're fine. All you're doing is putting that fraction into a different form that is still equivalent to the original fraction. You're not changing the value at all. You're just changing how it looks, which is a theme that comes up a lot in math. So B is 1. So without even really having to look, if I have D over 100, well, I know that I have to multiply 10 times 10 to make 100 on the bottom. And if I'm going to multiply the bottom by 100, if I'm going to cut all the pieces into 10, that means that the 5 pieces that I do have also each get cut into 10. So those 5 strips that you can barely see underneath me here, each becomes a row of 10 squares. There are 5 of them, so we get 50 out of 100. 5/10 is the same as 50 over 100. And vice versa. 50 hundredths is the same as 5 tenths. 6 over 10. Again, if I were to take these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 strips and cut each one into 10, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, then that gets me to 60 out of 100. V over 10 equals 30 over 100. Again, just multiplying by 10s, or in this case, dividing by 10. So it's 3 out of 10. And we've already did this one in reverse. 1 over 10 is the same as 10 over 100. That's equivalent fractions with fraction models, specifically denominators of 10 and 100. Okay, up next, equivalent fractions, denominators 10 and 100. So it's the same thing, just without the visual model. So again, we already talked about this. I'm going to kind of speed run this. If you have 9 tenths, that's the same thing as 90 over 100. You multiply the top and bottom by 10 to get the correct answer. 40 over 100 is the same thing as 4 over 10. A over 100 equals 6 over 10. That means that A has to be 60, right? 60 over 100 is the same thing as 6 over 10. 50 over 100, that's an L, by the way, for those of you who don't know how to write cursive. We had to write it back when I was a kid. I actually have a student who writes really, really great cursive, and it's a dying art. I do call it an art because I think it's not necessary for everyone to know how to do it, but I do think it looks gorgeous when people do it well. 50 over 100 is the same thing as 5 over 10. 8 over 10 is the same thing as 80 over 100. 1 tenth is the same thing as 10 hundredths. And 3 over 10 is the same thing as 30 over 100. And that's equivalent fractions. I think we'll probably lump those two videos together on YouTube because that was pretty quick. Not bad, not bad. Moving right along.